Now on ITV1 with all the latest stories, with the ITV News at 10.
This new year begins with at least one puzzling question. Why is the world's richest man so intent on telling us what to do? He now says that our Prime Minister, who, love him or not, we only just elected with a massive majority, should be in jail. That Nigel Farage, who, love him or not, at least stood for election here and won his seat, is not the person to lead the Reform Party. And that Jess Phillips, who, love her or not, has long been a champion of victims, is a rape genocide apologist. All of which leaves an even bigger question. Why has Sir Keir Starmer chosen to respond to any of it?
When the poison of the far right leads to serious threats to Jess Phillips and others, then in my book, a line has been crossed.
So, was it wise to get into a spat with a man like Musk? Robert will be here with his assessment. Also on News at 10 tonight. A very different kind of January the 6th, as Trump's victory is certified without issue. Meanwhile, icy roads and deep snowfall wreak havoc across the US, as parts of Britain are also hit by extreme weather. And
Demi Moore.
At the top of their game, Demi Moore leads a group proving superstardom is better second time around.
I've been doing this a long time, like over 45 years, and this is the first time I've ever won anything.
This is ITV News at 10 with Tom Bradby.
Good evening. You might think that, one way or another, Elon Musk had enough on his plate, what with preparing to help run the world's richest and most powerful country, and of course the fact he already owns and runs some of the world's most successful companies. So why is he so interested in the UK all of a sudden? He has said Sir Keir Starmer should be in jail, Nigel Farage shouldn't be leader of Reform, and that safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips, a long-term campaigner against sexual violence, is in fact a rape genocide apologist. No one, of course, is denying the extreme seriousness of the issue that is technically at the centre of the argument, the systematic sexual abuse of vulnerable young girls by so-called grooming gangs in British towns and cities. We've covered it repeatedly on this programme over many years. But what has surprised many today has been the fact that Keir Starmer chose to respond to the attacks from the world's richest man. He condemned the spread of what he called lies and misinformation and talked about the poison of the far right.
A vicious social media campaign by the world's richest man, Elon Musk, who accused Keir Starmer of complicity in what he called the rape of Britain, a failure to crack down on child abuse by gangs. Musk also said Home Office Minister Jess Phillips is a rape genocide apologist. And only this morning, Trump's advisor, Musk, wrote to 211 million followers that it should be prison for Starmer.
When the poison of the far right leads to serious threats to Jess Phillips and others, then in my book, a line has been crossed. I enjoy the cut and thrust of politics, the robust debate that we must have, but that's got to be based on facts and truth, not on lies.
This morning, he said you should be in prison. You're a lawyer. That sounds libelous.
Once we lose the anchor that truth matters in the robust debate we must have, then we're on a very slippery slope. But it ought to matter, and it used to matter, to all political parties. And it's a sign of where the Tory party have got to, that we're even having this debate.
Reports of systematic child abuse by gangs first started 25 years ago, but it wasn't until a major police investigation in Rotherham in 2009 that the scale of the abuse started to emerge. That was followed by shocking disclosures of gang-led child grooming in Rochdale, Oxford, Telford, Newcastle, Derby, Huddersfield, Halifax, Manchester and Oldham. In 2022, a national inquiry found that children were still being abused by gangs. Oldham Council recently requested a public inquiry into the scandal, but this was refused by Home Office Minister Jess Phillips, prompting Musk's savage outburst against her. So, any regrets from the Tories?
It is not correct to brand as far right people who are raising legitimate concerns about the systemic, organised gang rape of vulnerable young girls. It's that kind of attitude that Keir Starmer expressed this morning that is why these horrendous crimes got covered up in the first place.
And although Starmer insists he was the first director of public prosecutions to crack down on gang-led grooming in Rochdale, a former police officer and whistleblower is unimpressed.
I push back entirely on the fact that that was a successful prosecution. 10 years later, after all the fighting that I did alongside victims in Rochdale, Greater Manchester Police themselves admitted organisational borderline incompetence in the handling of that case.
No new national inquiry, says Starmer, but he will honour the last one. Keir Starmer says he will now implement the recommendations. Do you trust him?
I really hope so. We met with his team, the Home Office team, in September. We're really looking forward to
Well, we're now
further
January,
updates.
you met in September.
Exactly. We're really looking forward to updates with them.
One of those updates came tonight from the Home Secretary.
We will make it mandatory to report abuse, and we will put the measures in the Crime and Policing Bill that will be put before Parliament this spring, making it an offence with professional and criminal sanctions to fail to report or cover up child sexual abuse. The protection of institutions must never be put before the protection of children.
Musk cowed by Starmer? No. Tonight he doubled down on his attacks. It's not goodbye, but see ya from him.
And Robert is here to talk about all this. Look, it's a fool's game guessing what the millions of people watching this programme are thinking. Probably lots of different things, but I suspect quite a lot of people in this country are quite irritated to have the world's richest man lecturing us from the other side of the world on what we should be doing with our country, whether they think he's right or wrong on the issues. Why has Keir Starmer chosen to respond to something he could easily have ignored?
So I don't actually think he could ignore it any longer. At the end of last year, I actually was surprised when I went to the G20 in Rio and Musk was really putting the boot into the UK, saying that Starmer turned it into a police state, eroded our freedoms, nobody in their right minds would invest in the UK. And I, interviewed Starmer and I said, you can't ignore this. You've got to take this on. And he absolutely point blank refused to engage. But this time, Musk has made the charge that when Starmer was Director of Public Prosecutions, he was soft on these gangs of people from Pakistani origin because he was frightened of being accused of being racist. He was involved in cover-ups. He's accused his Home Office minister of somehow being, I don't even know quite what this means, except it sounds terrible, a rape genocide apologist. Now, Musk has got 211 million followers, 3 times the population of the UK. The traction that he's getting for these unbelievably vicious attacks on Starmer and his colleagues is enormous, right? I mean, you've got senior Republicans, basically climbing on the bandwagon. Not only is, Musk got this enormous audience, he's got the ear of the American president, Donald Trump. He's advising him on how to restructure the entire government. Now, against that backdrop, it doesn't take many people in the UK to think that this is credible for Keir Starmer just to be seen by too many people to be unfit to be Prime Minister. So he has to respond at the point where his entire credibility on something as sensitive as this is being challenged. I think he does have to respond. Now, where it goes from here, I simply don't know. I mean, the thing that I would be... There are lots of people who somehow think that Trump is going to distance himself from Musk because he thinks Musk has gone too far. If you want my honest view, I very much doubt that's going to happen. So I think this is a genuinely serious problem for Starmer.
To be continued, one suspects, probably all year. Robert, thank you very much indeed. Now, one of the cornerstone ceremonies of American democracy quietly took place in a snow-covered Washington today when Congress formally ratified the election of Donald Trump as the country's next president. How different it was 4 years ago. Then, a mob of Trump supporters, egged on by his claim that the 2020 election had been stolen, stormed the Capitol to try to prevent Joe Biden's ratification. President Biden has urged people in the United States not to erase the memory of what happened that day. President-elect Trump, on the other hand, has already vowed to pardon many of those accused or convicted over the January the 6th riot.
It is a ritual of American democracy. The certification of a presidential election. And today it passed off peacefully and with a sense of solemnity. How different from 4 years ago, when the process was hijacked by those who stormed the Capitol to challenge Joe Biden's victory.
The House come to order.
This afternoon, the contrast could not have been greater.
Pursuant to the Constitution.
And there was a deep irony, too. Kamala Harris, the loser of this election, was presiding in her role as President of the Senate. To her fell the hardest task of all, announcing the Electoral College victory of the man she had warned is a fascist.
The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes.
The visual representation of a divided Congress and a divided nation was on vivid display. Harris somehow managing to sustain her smile throughout. USA! 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 One of the first steps Donald Trump is expected to take as president is to pardon or commute the sentences of at least 1,000 supporters who were convicted of storming the Capitol. Among those hoping for a pardon is Felipe Marquez. He was sentenced to 18 months for obstruction and disorderly conduct for his role that day.
I was there on January 6th protesting.
Now a taxi driver in Florida, he told me he is hopeful of a Trump executive order clearing him of any wrongdoing.
Why, Mr. Marquez, should you be pardoned, do you think?
I would say because I participated in a nonviolent protest. I guess ultimately a lot of us that went there believed we were doing the right thing, I guess.
Do you regret your actions 4 years ago, or do you have a sense of remorse today?
Not really. I went in, I documented, I kind of went in to make a video, document the experience, show my support, protest against things that I believed were happening at the time.
Extraordinary security was in place around the Capitol today. This time, none of it needed. With election certification once more a matter of constitutional routine.
And Robert joins us now from Washington. Robert, of course, 4 years ago, you were right in there with the protesters or rioters, whatever we want to call them, inside the Capitol building. Very, very different this time. Is there any sense Mr. Trump himself wants to turn the page and heal the divisions?
Oh, I mean, Tom, not at all. I mean, today, far from heeding the sort of constitutional norms, far from showing humility at this magnificent ceremony certifying his election triumph, far from apologising for his role 4 years ago, he's gone in entirely the opposite direction. He has today accused Joe Biden of sabotaging the transition. He has vowed to reverse all of Biden's recent executive orders. And he's gone on to troll Canada, saying that Canada should become America's 51st state, and that's the only way for that country to avoid punitive tariffs. For Kamala Harris today, look, this has been excruciatingly awkward, but she told reporters as she left that she has done her duty, she has fulfilled her oath of office, and that American democracy stood strong today. And Joe Biden, for his part, has urged Americans never to forget the events of here 4 years ago. He said that his predecessor, and of course the same man who is his successor, is not only trying to rewrite history, he said that Donald Trump is trying to erase history.
OK, Robert, it's going to be an interesting 4 years. Thank you very much indeed. Now, the snow that blanketed Washington as events in Congress took place, as you saw behind Robert there, came from a huge and violent winter storm that's hit much of America's eastern seaboard, a belt of extreme weather with plummeting temperatures, and the heaviest snowfall for years has been moving across from Midwestern states like Kansas. More than 1,400 flights have been cancelled as Storm Blair, as it's called, exerted its icy grip.
A polar vortex has plunged much of America into a deep freeze. Arctic weather, normally contained around the North Pole, has moved far to the south, with sub-zero temperatures and ice leading to dramatic consequences for those on the roads. Storm Blair is the first major winter system to hit the United States, and it's packing quite a punch.
I want to stress one more time to the people of our state, we are still in an active state of emergency, and everyone needs to remain vigilant.
In Utah, the volume of snow created an avalanche engulfing a highway. In Ohio, the roads were also treacherous, with lorries near Cincinnati caught in a 7-hour traffic jam. Travel across the country has been severely impacted. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled across a swathe of the central states. Several have declared emergencies as temperatures plunge as low as -25 centigrade.
This winter storm has dumped heavy snow across 1,000 miles of the United States. Flights have been cancelled, schools are closed, and in many cities, the streets are almost completely empty.
Only the hardy and the well-equipped were braving these conditions.
I moved here in August and I brought my skis, and I'm so excited that I get to ski here. Yeah.
Many schools have declared snow days both today and tomorrow, to the delight of children whose lessons have been cancelled. Washington, D.C. this January the 6th saw a very different confrontation, an organised snowball fight near the Capitol, offering some light relief in this politically divided country. And there's no end in sight to this cold snap, with more snow forecast and temperatures staying well below zero as America shivers through the coldest winter blast for a decade. Dan Rivers, News at 10, Washington.
Well, on a similar theme, parts of the UK are also being hit by bad winter weather tonight as snow and flooding continues to cause widespread disruption, including the closure of hundreds of schools. And there are forecasts of worse to come. A yellow Met Office warning for snow and ice tomorrow covers western and central areas from northern Scotland right down to the West Country. And that warning remains in place for southern England on Wednesday.
The aftermath of days of wintry weather, melting snow and rain combining to create life-threatening flood conditions. Major incidents declared this morning, first in Leicestershire and Rutland, and then Lincolnshire.
Don't worry, we'll be fine. Yeah, my friend is coming.
The driver of this car had to be rescued from the rapidly rising floodwater. A local restaurant owner wading through chest-high water to carry her to safety.
I just thought, just go, just like run and get out, you know. So it is danger, but I believe that everybody will do the same. I can't even hear her words. I don't want to even hear her when she's talking about she's grateful for her life, because she would have passed. She would have gone. She would have gone in 15-20 minutes probably.
Children's Christmas presents less than 2 weeks old are now ruined after flooding hit the Cooper family's Leicestershire home for the second year, almost to the day.
Obviously for my children, they've just had Christmas and my son's had his first birthday on Boxing Day and they've lost all their new toys. And it's, you know, they are just possessions, we are okay, but to them it's everything. So it's really sad, really sad.
Trains were also affected. Services between London and Sheffield cancelled because of flooding on the line between Derby and Long Eaton. Further north, challenging conditions of a different kind. A fresh fall of snow overnight in County Durham brought fresh misery for drivers this morning.
I'm not going to rush until sort of mid-morning and let everybody hopefully get out the way. So.
The most hardy and determined were up early, preparing to do battle with the elements. But it was soon clear that in many places, no one was going anywhere.
Yeah, we've got a few bodies down here.
Farmers, police and mountain rescue services all pulling together to free stranded drivers on this exposed road. What should have been the first day back at school turned into a snow day for many children in northeast Scotland and northern parts of England. Tonight, hundreds of flood alerts and warnings remain in place across large parts of England and Wales, along with yellow weather warnings for more snow and ice in North and West Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, making travel challenging as the wintry conditions continue. Martha Fairley, News at 10, Sheffield.
The Prime Minister today unveiled his plans to cut NHS waiting times in England over the next 5 years, enabling more patients to use community diagnostic hubs to get treatment for less serious conditions and ailments had been well flagged as one proposal. But he also revealed that more NHS patients will be sent for treatment in private hospitals to help clear the long waiting lists.
You're right, babe.
Jamie Barber has been stuck at home waiting for nearly 2 years for an operation to remove his gallbladder. Like many of the 7.5 million people on NHS waiting lists, the longer he waits, the more severe the risk to his health.
My life's been stopped. It's been put on hold because of the surgeries needing to happen. I can't go out and enjoy anything, carry on football career, my work. I've literally just been stuck in this room.
When the pain symptoms flare up and he's just laying in that bed, it's heartbreaking. I can't do anything for him. It just feels like nobody will help me. I'm not begging anything. The doctors try and palm me off at the hospital. The hospital won't even answer their calls.
Keir Starmer, sleeves rolled up to show he means business, is starting the new year with an old promise to deal with the waiting lists ruining lives like Jamie's.
An NHS that's faster, easier and more convenient, with waiting times cut, patients in control, technology at your service, and outstanding care in your community.
The target of 92% of patients starting treatment within 18 weeks has not been met since 2015. Currently, only 59% are seen within that window. But the government is promising that by 2026, 65% will be, and that by 2029 it will be back up to 92% of patients. The plans rely on better use of technology and a more efficient NHS. So in the new system, the first step could be booking appointments via an updated NHS app, where you can also check waiting times and receive test results. That could lead to referral to a community diagnostic centre, open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, for scans, x-rays and blood tests under one roof. And then for routine surgery, this could be done at expanded surgical hubs, which will be ring-fenced so appointments aren't lost when the NHS is under pressure. NHS leaders agree on the need for reform, but insist it won't work without more staff.
You've still got to have people to treat patients and look after them. And their biggest challenge for that, with the largest workforce, is nursing. And I think we would say we're probably the most challenged.
Delays in tackling failing social care are also holding back the NHS, and the success of the Starmer government will be closely linked to whether these new targets are actually met. Romilly Weeks, News at 10.
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, once widely seen as a poster boy for Western Liberal politics, today announced his resignation. After nearly a decade in power, it follows rising discontent at his leadership and deep rifts within his own government, culminating in the sudden decision of his finance minister to quit last month. When Canada's Parliament returns in March, it is widely expected the ruling Liberal Party will face a no-confidence vote.
As the weather whipped away his notes, Justin Trudeau barely blinked. This wasn't the script he'd had in mind anyway. Canada's leader for almost a decade, finally undone by political headwinds that have been gathering pace for months.
So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Merci, merci. Thank you.
A subdued end to a political career that began when the former schoolteacher took the polls by storm in 2015.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends, a real change.
Winning friends across the globe and 3 elections as something of a poster boy for Liberal politics. But the protests against him, held by Canadian truckers opposed to his handling of the pandemic, turned out to be the start of mounting discontent, with his own party eventually turning against him.
Mr. Trudeau had run out of gas, really.
Yeah, what was it in the end that did for him?
He's been in power for 10 years, and in Canada, no leader gets past 10 years. It doesn't matter what political party you're in. Voters simply get sick and tired of you, and it's worse when there is a bad economy and inflation has really been hitting Canadians very hard.
Matters not helped by an old neighbour newly returning to power. After this recent meeting, the President-elect wrote that if Canada was to become our 51st state, their taxes would be cut by more than 60%, a suggestion he repeated today. The doubts surrounding Trudeau's ability to deal with Trump's nationalism contributing to his Deputy Prime Minister's resignation last month. It proved the final straw.
This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
Trudeau exiting the stage with the Conservatives waiting in the wings and an all too familiar question for this side of the pond.
Why didn't you do it earlier?
Whoever succeeds him left with little time for the uphill battle ahead. Rachel Younger, News at 10.
Finally, the Golden Globe scoop by Demi Moore was not just an unexpected triumph for a star who had never previously won a major gong, despite once being surefire box office gold. Her award also struck a chord with other older film and television actresses, asserting their presence at the ceremony. Who knows, perhaps this is a pointer for more of the limelight being reclaimed in a similar way when the Oscars come around.
And so we're off, the first major entertainment awards of the year. The new generation of screen superstars in attendance, though it would be a name from another era that would lead the headlines.
Demi Moore.
A huge box office star in the 90s, Demi Moore, now 62, was thinking about quitting acting before she was offered a lead role in the horror film The Substance.
I thought a few years ago that maybe this was it. And as I was at kind of a low point, I had this magical, bold, courageous, out of the box, absolutely bonkers script come across my desk called The Substance. And the universe told me that you're not done. I'm fine.
Moore plays an aging celebrity fighting to keep her looks and her career in a sexist industry. In her 40-plus years on screen, first in coming-of-age films like St Elmo's Fire, she knows all about being in and out of fashion.
How come you never made a pass at me?
She was once Hollywood's highest-paid actress, starring in one of film's most famous scenes. Her win, her first major acting award, was an unexpected triumph, and one that spoke to her fellow older actresses. Jodie Foster, who won her 5th Golden Globe, saying she's relaxed about being 62 in the industry.
There will come a day where they'll say, oh, I see. And that's true for athletes, it's true for artists, it's true for creative people, it's true for scientists, that in order to allow or to open, to have discovery, you have to be able to just let things happen and not continually try to control them like I did for the first 55 years of my life.
And then there was this from Zoe Saldana, who won a Best Supporting Actress award for Emilia Perez.
I'm 46. There was a moment a couple of years ago where I was sort of thinking about like plan Bs, like do I go into like a homestead and start like planting a garden and baking goods and just become, you know, the sexiest soccer mom in my mind.
The list of female nominees and winners this year is being seen as a significant moment for women on screen.
We've got Pamela Anderson back, we've got Nicole Kidman, Tilda Swinton, all these women in contention who are at a certain stage in their careers and they're triumphing.
Hollywood, of course, loves a comeback, and Demi Moore is now all set for the Oscars. Nina Nanar, News at 10.
And that is all we have time for tonight, I'm afraid to say, on the night that Sir Keir Starmer chose to respond to all the many things Elon Musk has had to say about our country. That's it. See you tomorrow. Good night and Happy New Year.
The big thaw after the big freeze over the weekend.